Boxing on Channel 5. Defending his name, his legacy. Harlem Eubank, battling his way up the super lightweight rankings. Can he remain undefeated? Big Fight Live, Eubank versus Usyk, Friday at 10 on Channel 5.
Raza Ban IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. With me on Zoom, the knowledge, Spencer Fearon. Spence, firstly, looking sharp as always. How are we doing?
I'm really good. Just come back from shopping, as we do, daddy's duties and stuff like that. And then I got to get ready to go and do the kids' school uniform for the week because they're back at school. So yeah.
We spoke earlier in the week. You mentioned to me that water erodes rock. You said to me that there's only so much punishment a fighter can take. When we refer to Joe Joyce open to taking many shots. Yesterday we saw an upset. Let's say it as it is. It was an upset. Everyone expected Zhang to give him a tough fight, but expected Joe Joyce to come on and maybe stop him a bit late. What was going through your mind from that first round where Zhang was just so good with that left hand?
What was going through my mind? Well, you know what? I didn't actually watch the fight live. I for some strange reason my BT wasn't working. It was like I tried to connect it, and I've got BT on my phone as well, and it weren't going through. Yeah, I mean, I think I've shared out my passcodes to too many people. No, it just wasn't working. So I missed the first 2 rounds, right? But then I was getting running commentary from my brother from another mother, Babatunde Ajayi, as he was there with Anthony Yard, and a massive big up to Joe Padua, who got his second professional win, who's Tunde's junior middleweight that he's managing and training, and so I didn't get to see it properly. But then when I started to watch it, I was around behind everybody else, and then I made sure I didn't look at no tweets or nothing. I went to hear the result myself, and I always believed that somebody like Zhang would give Joe Joyce trouble, right? But, and this is the but, whereas Joe Joyce has looked so impressive in beating Joseph Parker. Right, let's just call it as it is. That was very Joshua couldn't do that, neither could Dylan White, right? And Joe Joyce looks so impressive in defeating Daniel Dubois, who since then has learned boxing, right? But when I was saying that water erodes rock, you cannot, and Joe Joyce has not adapted his style. If you watch Joe Joyce from the amateurs, I remember him from way back in the day when he was boxing in the amateurs. Right throughout, there has been no adaptation on Joe Joyce's technique or his ability. So when I was saying to you that I would like to see Joe Joyce kind of brush up on certain things like to the technicalities, especially when it comes to defense, right? Because Joe Joyce doesn't step offline, but it's easier said than done now that the fight's over and done with. So it's easy to be like, right, I'm seeing so many people being these great philosophers now the fight's done. Nobody expected that. Nobody. Let's just be real. I knew Zhang was a good fighter. Yes, I did. But I have been so greatly impressed with the work or the body of work that has gone over the last few years with Joe Joyce and him being this juggernaut. Ishmael Salas was screaming at ringside, do the juggernaut, do the juggernaut. No, the juggernaut thing, boxing, and he should know better as well. Boxing is not just about toughness. You know what I mean? It's not. It's not just about how tough you are. You can take it. And I told you, like all these people say, oh, well, his skull, his density is thicker than the average human being and blah, blah. Like I said, water erodes rock. And you can't continually get hit thinking like there's not going to be reverberations on you. And that's what happened. He was fighting and he's continually getting hit. And it adds its toll. It adds its toll. I do think that Joe Joyce, if he had the desire to come back, I believe that he can come back. But right now, you have to look at Zhang, it's a business. If we've got 1 billion Chinese in China, right? 1 billion. Just 2% of that have to watch him on pay-per-view, Zhang, fighting in, Macau? He's gone. He's gone. And fair play. Here's a man with pedigree. Here's a man that can box. Here's a man, and he done some really good 70s stuff in there, you know? He does some really good 70s stuff. Like, I like how he was shouldering from his southpaw stance, how he was up with Joe Joyce, he was shouldering Joe Joyce's right hand, and he would fire back with his left hand straight down the middle. Like, you know what I mean? Credit to the guy. Zhang can fight, man. He really, really can fight. And as far as I'm concerned, Zhang's actually unbeaten because I still stand by that he beat Hrgovic.
Why did Joyce continue to struggle with that left hand? Why couldn't he adjust and make those relevant adjustments to cope with the pressure that Zhang was throwing at him?
Because he's constantly traded on toughness and not intelligence. Right? And that's the truth. Joe Joyce has, and that's not me knocking Joe Joyce because what he's accomplished is incredible, right? But I always do believe that Joe Joyce is actually fighting within himself because the guy he's so physically gifted, but he doesn't show it. He just likes to be this stiff robot, man. Do you know what I mean? Imagine like there's certain times where Joe Joyce was throwing these shots and Joe Joyce looks slower than Nelson's column. And I've seen this on loads of his fights, but because he has this style of methodically marching you down, methodically just breaking you up, I would have seen it like it'd be very difficult for anybody to go and deal with him. But now because you're getting hit constantly, it takes its toll. And water does erode rock.
Spence, one of the things we saw prior to the fight was when he was on the pad with Ismail Salas in the changing rooms, Ismail was standing orthodox and not southpaw. Do you take or read much into that, or was that just warming up Joyce's hand before he goes into a fight?
Well, did he do that in the fight? He didn't do any of that in the fight. So you could do southpaw pads and you see, like everything is irrelevant that you're doing, right? If you don't do it in a fight, right? And you got to think of mental capabilities that our attention span isn't that long anyway. If you're constantly doing something and drilling in you, only do things that you're going to use in a fight. Seriously. Only do things that you're going to do in a fight. I could see like on certain things, maybe it's, oh, well, if you do this, then just in case, and we've got to change it up. But you're not doing the stuff in the fight. So sometimes we do things for gimmicks. I'm not saying that Ibn Salah is a well-accomplished trainer, right? But sometimes we do things for gimmicks. Now, I'm very, very old school on certain things. I'm going to do things that I know that I would like to see a fighter do when we're in the ring, right? And constantly keep on practicing those things because the things that you do most are the things that you do best. So, and that's how I'm going to leave it. And it's not me having a dig at anyone, but I saw people who was being profoundly cocky prior to it. And don't be too sick, because I was one of those as well. Like, what, Joe Joyce, the juggernaut? Right. I think his mind wasn't on this because they was looking past Zhang. I was saying, are you crazy to look past Zhang? Zhang can fight, and he's big, right? And he's clever, and also, like I said before, he reminds me of a 70s fighter on how he puts his shots together. And he's a southpaw, and he doesn't look like an awkward southpaw. He doesn't look awkward being southpaw.
Spence, like you said, a lot of people were talking about how, based on Anti-Joshua's last performance, that Joe Joyce will walk through Anti-Joshua and knock Anti-Joshua out. And then yesterday, we see fans put out, no, Anti-Joshua will brutalize and...
No, listen. Listen, like I said already, right? That when people go through things like Anti-Joshua, you have to realize that it's down to you. It's down to your own perception, right? It's down to your own perception of how you want to look on things. Now, are you being planted or are you being buried? So when certain things you think is really bad, are you being planted? Because, when you're getting planted, you're going to get all that nutrients, you know what I mean? And you're going to grow, you're going to sprout, and you're going to grow something new. Or are you being buried to say that you're done because you're dead? Right? Now, I think with Joe Joyce's main focus should have been on Zhang and not on anything that Anti-Joshua had to say. Right? Anything that Anti-Joshua had to say. Do you know what I mean? Good luck to Anti-Joshua. And I noticed like everything was, I saw Sam Jones, who's my guy, right? But I see Sam Jones was saying, Daniel Dubois should have a big picture of, did you do that interview? Should have a big picture of Frank Warren in his house, kissing that picture every day because look, he's got a world title shot before us and it's not fair and blah, 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 and all the rest of it. Hello, let's call it right. Frank Warren, first world title fight. His first world title fight was in 1985. Donald Curry, when he came over came over here to defend his undisputed welterweight championships against Colin Jones, right? He's been in the game a long time. So obviously he's going to know how to maneuver a fighter, especially when they've invested heavily in someone like Daniel Dubois to recoup their finances, right? So they're going to know how to move their fighter to say what we want to go and do with him. So we can't look on that, but it's like on everything. When I think the energies were all wrong. Don't listen to me. I'm not looking in the next man's pocket. What you got in your pocket is your business. What you've got, everything else that you got, that is your business. I'm happy for you. I don't know what you had to do to go and get it. Right? So I'm not looking at nobody else's stuff. So for the same instance, I think it's a valid lesson to be learned by everybody involved. Don't overlook the opponent that's in front of you, and the opponent that was in front of you can blink in fight. And like I said again, that man came here as an undefeated fighter. He never lost to Hrgovic. So you're looking at him and he wanted it. I'm saying, like, when that fight was announced, I was like, wow, that fight? That's a dangerous fight.
George Warren confirmed yesterday that there was a rematch clause. We know in the rotation, Dubois next, then it's Hrgovic, and then it's the WBO for obviously Zhang at the moment. So that won't be probably until May next year. Spence, everyone talks about George Foreman didn't win a world, won a world title when he was 45. A different era, a different person, a different fighter. Joyce is turning 38 this year. Realistically, does he take that rematch? Is that his only option to get closer to that world title?
No, it's not his only option. It's the heavyweight division. We saw technical faults there with Joe Joyce, which he's been allowed to get away with because he is so tough, right? He's been allowed to get away with it, right? And at the time where we're just seeing a bit of the man's character come out now. We're just seeing a bit of the man's, we're seeing it. So we're looking on things and we're looking at him and saying, well, boy, you know what, we are actually being fortunate to see a different side to Joe Joyce, right? But when people are talking about this George Foreman thing, he won a world title at 45, right? In, what was that? That was November of 1994 against Michael Moore when he stops him. That's a different era. You know what I mean? That is a different time. Reason being, because George Foreman was formerly a heavyweight champion of the world prior. So it's not like he don't know what it's like to be up there. He knows what it's like to be up there. And yes, we're looking like Joe Joyce is long in the tooth. Or now everyone's writing him off. Or now, and like I'm saying, this is how it is. Everyone's now like, oh, like I remember how vicious the boxing fan was on Anthony Joshua after his performance, right? Myself included. Not hiding away from that. But I know from where my thoughts of criticism, I know where they're coming from. My thoughts of criticism, because I actually want you to do better. I actually want you to get back up to that mountaintop. That's the difference. A lot of people, when they were being critical of Anthony Joshua, was from the space of like, yeah, we've had enough of him, we've had enough of Eddie Hearn, we've had enough of the zone, we've had enough of we just had enough. So therefore, sod them lot, sod all of them, you know what I mean? And this nonsense about, you know what I mean, stay focused, stay humble, sod all of them. That's where it's come from. Mine's not from there. Mine's from a position of love because I want you to go to gold and accomplish what you're meant to accomplish, right? So now everyone's twisting on the thing and it's like, oh, well, Joe Joyce would have got smashed up by Joshua. Joe Joyce this would have happened to Joe Joyce. That would have happened to Joe Joyce. No, stick to what you're saying to you. People weren't saying that. They were not saying that. We were saying now Joe Joyce is a problem, especially the way how he dismantled Parker. No, that man is a serious fighter. And everyone was saying, oh, he's got to be top three now. It's got to be Tyson Fury, Usyk, and Joe Joyce. That's what everyone was saying. Let's just be real. That's what they were saying. So now, don't try to change up because you've seen something different now, or hold up your hands and say that you were wrong. I still think Joe Joyce could come back from this. Don't worry about his age. If he wants to come back, I believe that Joe Joyce can come back.
A word on Zhang. How does he cope with a Usyk, with a Fury? Different fighters, but how does he cope with that level now? Competitive?
Totally different fight. Because you know what? It'll be the first time in history, I believe, that if he was to fight Usyk, it'll be the first time in history that we've had two southpaws fighting each other for the world heavyweight championship. Think about it. Right. So that would be amazing. And I don't think that would be a boring fight neither, because of how educated Zhang is. He's an educated fighter. I see him doing sneaky stuff in that ring, and I'm like, wow, this guy can fight. I saw him do some sneaky stuff before, but I think his conditioning was all wrong. But when we're out, we're seeing, that's my little daughter screaming, right? When you can see a fighter who is completely comfortable with their identity, yeah, their identity becomes their reality when they go and fight. And that's what we saw yesterday. When you're seeing a man coming like Chinese power, you got 1 billion Chinese over there. You know what I mean? They're all behind their guy here. You know what I mean? They're behind him. That's energy. And as soon as you start understanding how energy works and how it can neither be destroyed, neither created. But as soon as you realize how energy works, you want to get yourself on that same vibrational frequency level. And I think that he has got himself on that. That's why he was unafraid to come to the UK. He was unafraid to go in there with Joe Joyce, because really and truly, we thought, wow, the Zhang fight, I thought, that's crazy. But you know what? The guy came out successful, and he did. He boxed Joe, he hurt Joe, and I mean, it's just one of those things, man. It's one of those things. We got to give credit where it's due. Zhang is a very, very good fighter. I don't know how he's going to do against Tyson Fury. I think Tyson Fury is excellent, right? I don't know how he's going to do against Usyk. You know what I mean? Because I think Usyk's excellent. But what I do know is that he's in the pecking order, and he's shown us that, you know what? If he's up for it and he's coming to fight, he's a problem.
Absolutely. Spence, always a pleasure. Thank you for a little bit of your time. And yeah, we'll catch up with you very, very soon.
Yes, my brother.
Spence Fearon, IFL TV, thank you very much.
That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day,